Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and this is my little buddy Grogu, and we want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Grogu's here, he's on my shirt, Mando's up there, you know what time it is, we're not wasting any time, we're getting right into some spoilers. So why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat as we get ready to dive in, spoiler-filled, into The Mandalorian Chapter 15, The Believer. And like I said in my non-spoiler, this is a bit of a palate cleanser for us. We got the finale next week. We're coming off of like two of the biggest episodes we've ever had in the series as far as like pop and like audience response. I mean, the Ahsoka episode, mind-blowingly good. Got you ready for what I would imagine is going to be a Dave Filoni-led run Ahsoka show, which we heard at the investor meeting last night. Ahsoka is indeed getting a spinoff, and that episode certainly made you go, wow, we need a spinoff for that. We have another spinoff that we assume could happen at some point. It wasn't confirmed last night, but you get that Boba Fett episode last week, and Mandalorian fans are riding on quite the high. And with 2 episodes left, and I mentioned this in my non-spoiler, like, just Favreau mentioning Game of Thrones, like in the back of your head, it's like, oh man, second to last episode, this could be the big one. And it's not. In the world of The Mandalorian, this is a palate cleanser. Like, we came off of 2 real big ones. Now we got to go do a little side mission real quick because we need this side mission in order to figure out where Gideon is and how we get, Grogu back. So it's a small little side mission that kind of stands alone, but it is an important one because it's the key piece of information that they'll need to get us to the finale. And what I like here is Rick Famuyiwa doesn't try to do too much with this episode. Like, it is what it is, it's a bit of a palate cleanser. But Famuyiwa still gives us really good action. He gives us some really cool moments and delivers another episode with Bill Burr that I thought was pretty freaking enjoyable. And you know how we do our spoiler talk. Not spoiler. We already did the non-spoiler. You know how we do our spoiler talk. Now we're going to start right at the top of this bad boy and rip right through it. And while, we're coming off of that high that the last few weeks have been, I like getting an episode that can highlight a character or give us something that we haven't seen. And Bill Burr is a talker. And talk he does. He does a lot of it in this episode. But a lot of what Bill Burr is saying throughout the episode and in different conversations he has specifically with the Mandalorian resonate pretty strongly throughout the episode and resonate in ways that are core to the character and things that are going on. So let's start right at the top, man, and rip through this one. And at the end of last week, we saw Mando recruiting Cara Dune again to come help him out. And she's like, look, I'm a Republic officer. I got rules to follow. The minute he says the kid is gone, she's full in. And he needs her in order to get Bill Burr's character out. Mayfeld is a former Imperial trooper. He knows the ins and outs, and Mando knows the only way that we're going to get those coordinates is if we get somebody on the inside who has knowledge and experience with Imperial stuff so that we can get these coordinates and get out. So the episode opens on a Junker planet where Mayfeld and other prisoners are working in this giant junkyard. And I love the way Famuyiwa just kind of sets the opening of this episode. Like, this Junker planet is filled with things that we should be familiar with. Lots of, dead TIE fighters throughout the junk that we see as we kind of scan through. We see some droids. We see, other things just in the background that we're familiar with. And then the Bo-Katan episode, you probably remember me saying there was something about that shot of the Razor Crest being pulled out of the water that just captivated me when I watched that episode. And you get to the opening of this, and when I rewatched that episode later on, realized that one of the things that really was captivating was the reusage of AT-ATs and kind of turning an AT-AT into a crane. While we're kind of scanning this Junker planet, we see like 3-4 AT-ATs that have been repurposed into different things that you can use in this, junkyard. I love that stuff. I love seeing things from the Star Wars world exist in the Star Wars world in ways that, regular stuff would, like following all of the Star Wars, there would be tons of junked TIE fighters and different ships and spacecrafts that you would see in a junkyard. So I love seeing all that stuff. The other thing that I love about this planet are the droids. You've got these, New Republic droids that are watching over all of the prisoners, and the one that interacts with Bill Burr is just fantastic. Like, I love the way Burr responds to him, and I love the way that the droid responds to Bill Burr. Just calling like prisoners, and basically tells him like, hey, someone's here for you. And Burr is just like, what is going on? And Cara Dune shows up, and he's like, oh, well, what do you want? He's like, you've been released into custody, Cara Dune, you whatever. She's like, yeah, I take him in. And Burr is rightfully confused right from the get-go. And he's like, what is going on? She's like, we need you for something, come on with me. And she's following him, and then the first person you see walk off of friggin' Slave One is Boba Fett. Now, I don't know. It certainly looked like they cleaned up his armor a bit. Got it maybe a fresh paint job. It looked less beat up and torn and looked a lot fresher. And it was awesome. Like, every time, Tamora Morrison has stepped on screen as Boba Fett in the gear, you just get these really cool camera angles. And Femi Ua hits you with one of these ones, again, that they're kind of low, which makes Boba Fett look bigger. And then the fact that Tamora Morrison is a larger dude than the guy who originally played Boba, like, he looks really big and really imposing and really threatening. And I love Burr's response, because he's just like, oh man, I thought you were somebody else that I know. I definitely don't want to see. And Tamora Morrison does like one of these, and down comes the Mando on the platform, and Burr's just like, oh hey Mando, like what's up? And they kind of just run through like what they need Burr for. Like, hey, we need to get these coordinates to find out where the kid is. And Burr is apprehensive at first, and like anybody that seems to be apprehensive about joining the Mando's little band of merry men, you mentioned like they got the kid, and all of a sudden you're in. And it's cool to see. Like, obviously we would expect that type of response from Cara Dune. But, like, now you got this bad guy, this criminal who's a prisoner. And even Bill Burr, his Mayfeld, when he hears the kid's gone, is like, all right, how do you need me to help you here? And, they basically kind of go through, like, this is what's what. Like, we need to figure this out. What do? We know you know the ins and outs. And he's like, you're going to need an Imperial base, and you're going to need an Imperial, like, docking monitor type thing, where, like, I'm gonna get in and I'll be able to find the information. And he basically points them to this one planet. He's like, we go here, there's a base that we can get into. And naturally, the place that Burr picks is, like, a spot where, like, you can be skeptical. Like, well, what are you sending us to this planet for? Like, there's nothing on this planet. And Burr's like, no, there is. And like other planets we've seen in the show, oh yeah, there's an Imperial base on this planet that nobody thinks anything is on, because the Imperials have a pretty good stronghold, specifically in the Outer Rim, of like holding it together. And later on in the episode, Richard Brake, he even kind of like insinuates that, like, oh god, the writing is so good in this show. And even though I'm getting ahead of myself, I don't want to forget about this one. But Brake's having this conversation with Bill Burr, and later on in the episode, and he plays like an Imperial commander. And like while they're talking, Brake's character is like, these people, they don't want freedom. They want somebody to rule them, somebody to tell them what to do. That they want order. And, when we're done, like, there will be order. And you're just like, it's not exactly what the line was, but like the way he said order, and the way, like, that's what people crave. They crave order, and they'll eat this order right up, man. You're like, oh, you're totally like hinting at like the First Order, like just little things like that from Favreau. I absolutely adore. And maybe it was Femi Ua, but it feels like a Favreau bit. But I love, like, seeing that type of stuff. So, Burr is just like, yeah, man, like, these guys have got a foothold out here, man. There are places that you guys don't know about, and this is one of them, and we'll be able to break in here. And off they go to this planet. They tell, Boba Fett, like, hey, take off. This is where we're going. He's like, cool. And what's awesome is when you're watching this scene, they're inside of Slave One. And Slave One is obviously parked, right? It's landed. So it's got to stand upright and take off. So you literally, as you're watching, like, Mando and Mayfeld and Fennec and Dune kind of conversing while Boba's flying, you're seeing, like, all the pieces in the back around, like moving as Slave One kind of repositions itself to fly off. There's a couple cool shots throughout the whole episode when we're in Slave One or flying around. Just some of the shots of the ship moving and the interior cockpit and just different interior areas of the ship. Really, really cool. I thought they popped really quite nicely on screen. So we take off for this planet, and when we get there, you know, they're kind of scoping it out. It looks kind of like Isla Nublar to me. Like I'm chilling, I'm like, this feels like dinosaurs are gonna start coming out of these woods, man. Not like AT-ATs or something else. And I just get a kick out of that. It did. It's very like tropical, foresty kind of a planet. And they get down, and sure enough, like the base that he says is there. And they're like, all right, so let's Dune, you go with Burr, and like we'll kind of hang out, we'll scope the top or whatever. And Burr's like, I gotta go in by myself. And immediately everyone's like, no, you're not going in by yourself. He's like, look, I can't bring Dune in with me because like when they scan our DNA, they'll see like Republic on it, and we're shot. So Mando's like, all right, well, Fennec, you go. She's like, oh, no, I'm wanted pretty badly by the Empire, too. Like, I will definitely set off their alarms. So Mando's like, all right. And Burr's like, yeah, I got to go in by myself. And Mando's like, no, I'll come. And Bill Burr immediately, Mayfield's just like, no offense. Pretty sure I'm not going to be able to walk into an Imperial compound with a guy wearing Mandalorian armor. You know, like, you'd have to take your helmet off. If you were gonna go in, and for a minute you're like, oh my gosh, like he's like, right after that he goes, I'm coming, and you're like, oh, is he gonna like take off the helmet? You see him touch it, and we go inside his like viewfinder, and he sees one of these trucks that are driving by toward this compound, and he sees a pair of different kinds of stormtroopers. I don't know what the armor was this time, but you know, these two guys are in transport or whatever, so he sees them, and he's like, no, I'm coming with you. And they go and they hijack the truck and they steal all of the armor. And next thing you know, like Burr's all up in his Imperial armor. Is like, this is pretty normal for me. And then Mando comes out dressed as like one of these transport stormtroopers, and you're just like, is a similar looking vibe to it, but very different than what we know. He's got the huge bag. He gives it to Dune. He's like, take care of this, would you? And it's one of those things where we've never really seen Mando not in some form of his armor. So seeing him in like a stormtrooper outfit is pretty wild. And like Burr even kind of makes like a comment like, yeah, what's it like to be in like a stormtrooper, like get up, and he kind of questions Mando. There's this really nice back and forth while they're driving to the compound where like they're talking, and Burr is a talker by nature, so Mayfeld also being a talker by nature makes a lot of sense. And he's just kind of riffing, and he's like, what's the deal, man? Like, do you have a code that you follow? Like, are you Mandalorian? Can you not take off your helmet, or can you not show your face? Because they are two distinctly different things. Like, you either have to leave your helmet on at all times around people, or you can't show your face. And while they could be perceived to be the same, they're very different. So which is it? Mando's not, giving Mayfeld anything. Mayfeld's just kind of riffing. And all of a sudden, we start hearing explosions. And you see up in front of them, like these massive explosions. And they were talking about how Fennec and Dune were going to have to set up camp with their snipers to take off people from the top. Because that's the only way they're going to get out. They're going to get in. They're going to flee to the roof. And then, Slave One can come in, pick them up, and be out. So you're like, those are really big explosions. That can't be Dune and Fennec, and like they shouldn't even be shooting yet. And sure enough, you're hearing people over the speaker like, "Hey, we're having an issue, break or whatever." Boom, another explosion, and Burr is like not about this, man. Mayfeld is a massive. He seems like a big old scaredy cat to some degree, where he's just like, I ain't signed up for this. Like, no way. And Mando's like, no, keep going. And all of a sudden, you see, like, this other speeder coming up alongside him with, like, 4 or 5 of these aliens that I swear could be from Isla Nublar. Like, they could come walking out of the forest in Jurassic World Dominion, and I'd be like, that makes sense. Which I thought was funny because the look and vibe of the planet felt like Isla Nublar. But they show up, and this is where, for me, Femi Uwa really kicks in the episode. Like, I've liked some of his humor. The script's been pretty solid from Fabs. This, though, was where Femi Ua just was like, all right, man, I've been waiting for this moment. And like I said in my non-spoiler, it's a different vibe than what we get with Robert Rodriguez. And it doesn't make it less. It just means, like, Robbie's really good. But regardless, like, it's still put together so well where I was captivated. And you get Mando up on top of this thing, and they're transporting, I can't remember what they call it, but it's a really, really highly explosive material. And basically, like, the truck has to keep a fairly constant speed. It can't, like, increase and decrease really quickly. It can't crash. It can't shoot around it. Like, that's what these big explosions were. And it's these bands of pirates that are coming and trying to blow this stuff up. And that was one of the other things. Like, when they're driving through, we actually kind of get, like, some of the actual natives of this planet. You see, like, little outskirts of a town. You drive by and you see, like, a bunch of kids or whatever. And like, you realize that, like, even though, like, the Empire has a stronghold here, like, there are people who just inhabit this planet that inhabit the planet. And those, I love those little things. Like, it's just that expanding universal feel. Like, anywhere you go, there are natives to that place. And I like seeing the group that we kind of just see on the street as we move forward or whatever. But now you got these pirates chasing you. And they're trying to blow this stuff up. So Mando gets up on top of the roof and goes to work, man. He's fighting. He's taking dudes out. These guys have, like, these big ass sticks, so he gets a hold of one and he's beating people like crazy. And I love this one moment because as he's fighting, one of the other aliens, like, goes to swing their staff, and he kind of goes to block it, and the armor just shatters and like basically explodes off his body. And he gets hit like 2 or 3 times, and every time it happens, like, the armor breaks, and you kind of see him, like, take a hit. And you sit there and you go, how badly does he wish he had the Beskar on right now? Like, we've seen throughout the entire season how Beskar has saved Mando's ass time and time again, or has allowed him to be cover for other people. You know, when he was with Cara and Greef, he gets out in front and throws those 2 grenades. When he's trying to protect Fennec last week, just taking the shots because he knows that it can. Now you're in this Stormtrooper armor, man. That stuff can't take a hit. I mean, we saw Tamora Morrison breaking dudes apart with his freaking staff, and that's kind of what's happening to Mando in this sequence, and I dig that. And what's cool is, as they're going, there's, like, waves of these pirates, and they show up again and again. And it's a really, really well shot and put together set piece where all this different action is going on, and, like, you honestly feel like they're on a moving car on, like, not on location, not on set. The backgrounds and just how realistic everything looks is still just mind-blowing to me. But anyway, like, Mando's telling, Mayfeld to, like, crank up the speed, like, get away from these guys. They're going, every once in a while you're seeing all the radars going off like red. You're like, oh man, this stuff is really volatile, it could explode. They're putting the bombs on, and Mando's got, like, 2 dudes on him. He knocks them off, grabs it, throws it off on another one. And, like, these guys just keep coming, and Mando just keeps on taking them out. And when he's just about done, he gets, like, like I said, he grabs, like, one of these bombs and he throws it at the speeder that's behind him. And as it blows up, it kind of knocks him back. He falls. And it's, like, one of these moments. This is another thing I love about this show. Is, like, you get these just little one-off, very quick moments that, like, really stand out when you're paying attention. And you just see Mando's kind of, like, slumped like this. And he's just like, all right. Gets back up and he's like, let's go. I'm going to keep fighting you. And you see, like, 2 more of these speeders coming up. And you're like, I love you, Mando, but one, you ain't got your armor on. You ain't got none of your gadgets. You don't have your blaster. Like, nothing is really working in your advantage other than, like, your fists still are good. I don't know how you're going to take all these people out. And then we get a moment I was, like, conflicted about, because you want to celebrate. It's a win for our heroes, but it's a win coming from the bad guys, you know? So, like, these pirates are moving toward the ship, and then all of a sudden you see these green blasters. Stuff starts blowing up, and 2 TIE fighters come flying in. And much like we've seen X-Wings or, other ships like Slave One or what have you come in and save Mando's ass, or in any of the Star Wars movies, save our heroes. And we get that moment, except for the fact that the ships that are saving them and the people that are saving them are TIE fighters and stormtroopers. And you're just like, Mayfeld even says to him, he's like, do you ever think you'd be getting your ass saved by a bunch of stormtroopers right now? And when they arrive at the compound, all of the different stormtroopers that are outside just start going nuts because 3 of these things have been blown up by pirates, and this one actually made it. And what we learned later, when Brake is back and kind of having that convo with Burr, he kind of mentions like this material gonna give us the ability to like wipe places out, man. Like that's what they're looking for. When I get there, you get this big old celebration. Everybody's like, and Burr's like saluting them, and it's funny when he's driving, he takes his helmet off, and he's just like, I can't, man. Like it's so much easier to see here, and he keeps messing with Mando, like, hey, why take life's so much better without the helmet on, man. I don't know how you guys wear this. And he's like, you I think he says you people. And he's like, yes, and you people as in Mandalorians. Like, I don't know how you do this. Like, the helmet is too much. Of course, Mando won't take it off. So when I get off, Burr is helmetless, and he's just, like, signing off to people. And it was a little weird, because, like, you've never really seen a stormtrooper with their helmet off. Even though there are Imperial, stormtroopers walking around, there are other people that don't have helmets on. But it was just kind of weird. Like, you have a stormtrooper that's in all gear. All the other stormtroopers are geared up and helmets on, and Burr doesn't have one. Doesn't matter, man. Like, this is a big old celebration. And him and Mando kind of walk in, whatever, and get into the compound, no problem. And they're kind of like looking around, and Mando's like, all right, so where we go? And sure enough, the terminal that they need is like in this little like cafeteria area. Like, a bunch of tables, people are eating. Off in the corner is this terminal that they need. So Mando's like, okay, what we gotta do? Burr's like, don't worry, I got this under control. And he walks in and he spots Brake. Now Brake, his character is Mayfeld's former commander, and he's like, he'll recognize me. And if he recognizes me, like, it's over. He's like, I can't do it. I cannot do it. And you're kind of like, all right, fair enough, but like, big deal. If he recognizes you, like, yeah, I'm just in this battalion now. Like, this is what we're doing. But nevertheless, he's like, I will not do it. And Mando's like, all right, well, give me the fab. Like, what do I got to do to get the coordinates? And Mayfeld's like, well, the only way the terminal works is if it scans your face. Like, you're going to have to take your helmet off. And you're like, well, Mando's not going to do that. And Mando's like, give me the thing. And he walks over to the terminal, and Burr's like trying to stay out of sight. But Breaker's character is like watching this whole exchange go on. And you see Mando come up, and he sticks the thing in, and he goes, all right, facial recognition, and he's got the helmet on. And it scans, and it doesn't work. And then it gets noisy. It starts like alarms. It's like, we'll reset or we'll shut down like in however long, unless you can do face. And you're like, Breaker, everybody in the room is like looking at Mando, and sure enough, takes off the stormtrooper helmet, and Pedro Pascal, face and everything, is front and center pretty much the rest of the way through the episode. And it's one of these things that I mentioned in the non-spoiler. I love Pedro Pascal's just his vision and like the way that he approaches the role. And when he takes the helmet off, like, he knows he has to. Like, the only way he gets the kid back is if he takes the helmet off. If he betrays his own code, so to speak. And remember, you had Mayfeld having that conversation. Like, what is your code? Like, can we not see your face? Or do you have to wear your helmet? Like, what is the real deal? And it's one of these things where the love that he has for this freaking kid is so much stronger than the code that was instilled in him from the time he was a little tiny kid. And I love that, and it breaks, a little, like, you can see like a level of not dishonor or disappointment, but like there is this like brokenness to Pascal's face when he takes it off. And it's like, those are the things that make him so freaking good and so perfect for this role. Like, even if he's got the helmet on most of the time, the few times we've gotten to see his face, he does not shy away from just capitalizing on those moments and really like leaning into the acting that he's doing. And Breaker, immediately he gets up and is like, hey, you over there, like, what's your deal? And he's just ignoring him. Finally, like, the thing registers his face. He's able to get his stuff. Breaker's like right on him. He finally pulls the fab out. He's like, hey, when a superior addresses you, like, you should be paying attention. And he asks him what his name is or what his designation is. And he's like, transport. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, I'm part of the transport group here. And he's like, no. What is, like, your number? Like, much like Finn had a number. Like, what's your number? And you're like, just make up anything. Like, this guy's not going to look it up in this moment. Say something, Mando. And Mayfeld comes out and he's like, oh, this is T, whatever, whatever. I'm T, whatever, whatever. This is my commander. How we doing or whatever. And immediately just starts to smooth talk and fast talk his way out of it. And, Mando's just kind of standing there like, come on, please. Almost like a please work type deal. And it does. And to degree, like, Breaker gets less suspicious, and he's like, hey, you're the two that delivered all the goods today, like the only one that made it. Let me get you a drink. And like, literally the only reason this exists is so that you can put Richard Breaker on, into the scene and let him just feast on some really really fun stuff. And like I said, he's a perfectly cast like Imperial commander. And they sit down to have a drink, and he's like, what should we toast to? And Burr immediately like brings up a specific event, and you're like, well, that was very like on the nose. And Breaker's like, oh man, like, your history. Like, we wiped that town out. And that's where he talks about like this explosive material that they have. That is going to give them the ability to have like 5 of those things. And Burr goes into this whole conversation with him. He's like, yeah, but like about that, he's like, I was there, man. Like, I remember. Like, obviously I know my history. I was there, but like, the amount of people that died, was it so necessary? Like the innocents, just the townsfolk that live there, which we saw on this planet at the beginning. All of our men, all of my men, like all of my brothers. Like, was it necessary for everybody to die? And Breaker's like, look, man, like, this is what it is. Like, you gotta do what you gotta do to win, and the Empire, is here. And I don't know if Mayfeld like makes a reference to like it falling or whatever. He's like, yeah, man, but New Republic, Old Republic, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. People crave order, and that's what you're gonna get from the Empire. Like, the Empire still lives, the Empire is still strong, and you can just tell like Burr clearly this is that thing that probably made him leave the Empire, was this moment in time, this battle that he was at, where all the people that he was with all the time died. And you can tell, like, it is something that does not sit well with him. And, you get to, like, the end of, like, the whole bit back and forth, and Breaker's like, all right, man, cheers to the Empire. And as they're about to clang it, like, Burr just pulls out his blaster and shoots homeboys point blank. And you're like, oh, shit. Like, what? And immediately, like, there's a stormtrooper off on the left, and there's only a couple people in the cafeteria at that point. But he sees it happen. And again, there's, like, something with the way that these directors shoot this stuff and the way the actors like turn their head or do stuff. I swear you get facial expressions through these helmets. And like, this trooper sees it and is like, what in the, and is like, Burr shoots him. Next thing you know, you've got a crazy shootout going on. Everybody's starting to flood this mess hall. And man, it's like, we gotta get out of here, man. And they're kind of like backing up or whatever, and there's a great moment earlier where Burr like kind of mentions to him, he's like, don't worry, I won't tell anybody I saw your face, type of deal. So by the time they get out, Mando's got his helmet back on. They break out through a window, and they're just kind of going along the side, and we finally get to kick over to Fennec and Dune, and they have very minimal screen time together, but Ming-Na and Gina Carano, I love their little back and forth chemistry. Like, they're talking about like who to pick off, and at one point there's almost like a little back and forth where it's like a competition where it's like Ming-Na's like, I don't think I'm gonna get this one. Dude's like, I got him. And you're just kind of watching them have this little back and forth with each other where it's like they're just picking off all of these people who were coming after Burr and Mayfeld and Mando as they climb to the roof. And as they're getting to the roof, Ming-Na goes, all right, like, you're good to go, Boba. And you actually, I think earlier in the episode, you heard, like, down below when they were getting ready to go to the planet, you hear, like, Mando yell up, like, hey, Fett! And I was like, yes. Like, those little things, I don't know what it is, just get me going, man. And Ming-Na's like, all right, we're good. Like, make your run, Boba. And, Slave One takes off to go save the day. And you're watching, like, they're taking out everybody. Fennec and Dune just keep picking off all of these stormtroopers that are chasing them up on the top. And you end up in the situation where, like, guys are shooting at them. And Mando jumps on. Mayfeld jumps on. Slave One takes off. And as Slave One's pulling out, Burr grabs a sniper. And you see him, and the canisters of this explosive material were red. And on the roof, you see him lock onto something and it looks red, and you're like, oh, it's definitely canisters, and pulls it, blows up the whole compound. And I think Fennec goes, nice shot or whatever, and Bert, you could tell like Mayfeld, it was like pro Empire, like he definitely was talking a bad guy game, but when presented with the person who caused all of that to end, you would imagine for Mayfeld's character, all of a sudden it was like, nah, F these Imperial guys, man. Like, I ain't about this. You got, again, like we saw, those innocent people who just inhabit the planet earlier. Like, that stuff must have really been burned into Mayfeld's brain, where I'm going to make this stand or whatever. So they get to safety, they park down, and, Mayfeld's basically like, cool, man, like, did my job. All right, like, lock me back up. It's one of these, like, you can kind of tell from the experience and the clear, satisfying nature of stopping a whole group, a whole compound of stormtroopers and Imperials. Like, that Bird just felt good about himself to the point where he's like, you know what? I might be a prisoner, and I might not have wanted to come along in all of this, and I might not be getting anything out of it. Like, at one point, like, he's like, what are you bringing me along for? There's nothing for me. And, it's just like, you don't get a choice here. And again, kind of pulling, like, the only way we get the kid back is if we can do this. And that kid, man, everybody loves that freaking kid. And it's kind of like this, you know what? I didn't get anything out of this for myself other than what I just did. And that was so satisfying. You can take me back to prison, Cara Dune. And Mando and Dune kind of look at each other. And I think Dune is the one that first says, like, it's too bad that prisoner, whatever his number is, didn't make it off the planet. Man was like, yeah, real bad. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm right here. And, he's like, yeah, he died in that compound and all those explosions. And basically, they're like, he's like, you gonna let me go? I can leave? Right now? I'm gonna go. If you let me, I'm gonna go. And like, you see him kind of backing up, and they kind of, Mando gives him the nod, and Mayfeld's like, all right, man. And it's one of these things where, again, we get these interactions with Mando and different people that he meets along the way. And he has an impact on just about anybody that he comes across. And like, even somebody like Mayfeld, who is a bad guy to his core, being around Mando, doing something that's actually good for the world, seemed to resonate with Mayfeld. Burr's acting and what he does at the end kind of makes you feel like he's satisfied in stopping the Empire here, and maybe he'll swing good going forward. It's one of those things where, like, you could see him kind of setting up shop on this planet with the locals. And like, maybe we come back there one day and, hey, there's Mayfeld just chilling, maybe he's a sheriff of a town or something like that. But just like, like I said, a simple, small, palate cleansing episode, but gave us some really cool things. I love that action set piece on top of the truck. I loved watching TIE fighters save the day for our hero. Like, it's a weird feeling, but a really cool thing to do. Like, you get to cheer and like, look, bad guys are not. TIE fighters are freaking badass looking. And just seeing them come through, and then the cheers, and like the actual cheers going on outside, I loved all that stuff. And just what they had Burr in this episode for, I thought he really worked. And while, he is Bill Burr more, I said Burr probably more than I say Mayfeld. I don't think he quite becomes the character, and maybe takes you out of it a little bit, but he's just so good on screen. And I really, really dug his chemistry with Pedro Pascal this week. Like, that was a little team where it's like, if you told me that Mayfeld and Mando were going to get back together to go, like, break somebody out of prison or do something together, I would be here for it. And you figure, like, as they get ready to take off, like, that's going to be the end of the episode. And like, it hasn't even dawned on you at this point that we haven't seen this dude at all, and we won't. We don't see him at all. It's the first episode that I can remember outside, and even the first. Like, you get him at the end, and then he's always around. And even if there is stuff where it's like Mando's got to go do things that the kid can't be around, you see him at the beginning, and then he's off on the side, like, with whoever he's got to be. Nowhere to be seen in this episode. But we do get Moff Gideon, and we kind of cut up to his ship, wherever he is in the galaxy, and one of his men are basically like, there's a message coming in. And they pull it up, and it's Mando in the hologram. And he's like talking directly to Gideon, and he's like, you have something I want, you have something I need. and you're gonna learn real quick that belongs to me and doesn't belong anywhere else but mine. That kid is more important to me than you will ever know, and I'm coming to get him. And that's not a quote, that's a general, but like the way he delivers it, man, he's like, that kid means everything to me. And he means so much more than you even know, and I'm coming. I am coming for you. And I was like, let's go. And it's one of these, like, for me, might be one of my favorite Mando moments of the entire series. Because one, I love the hologram usage in the Star Wars movies. I just think it looks really cool on screen. Two, seeing him as a hologram and talking directly to our big bad, who we're gonna, clearly have some kind of showdown with next week. Oh, get me pumped, man! Like, just I love it, man. That's that swag that Mando has, where it's just like, I know who the hell I am. I don't care who the hell you are. If you think that anything is gonna happen to that kid and I'm not gonna stop it, you are crazy. And I'm so here for all of that. I cannot wait for next week, man. Like, it was one of those, it was an episode that did cool things. Like I said, we saw like, stormtroopers and, TIE fighters coming to the aid of our hero. We got that dope, top of the truck sequence. Like, there was some really cool stuff in this palate cleanser. And then you give me one of my favorite moments in the entire freaking show right at the end to get me freaking jacked for the finale. And that's what you wanted to do, I think, with this episode. I think you wanted to kind of cleanse that palate and then get that car to the top, man. Get that roller coaster car right to the top of the peak of the drop, so then next week, we can just go on what hopefully will be a phenomenal ride. So there you go, man. Those are all my spoiler thoughts on this episode. Really good stuff for an episode that, like, is hard to follow the last two. I think it did enough where I was entertained. 35 minutes, really short again, in and out, but no wasted moments. Like, there was something to take away every second in the episode. And Rick Famuyiwa, I think, does a phenomenal job. I mentioned this in my non-spoiler, but Ludwig Göransson's scoring in this episode is some of my favorite that he's done. Specifically, the fight on top of the truck, when those aliens are jumping on, he kind of swings it into this really cool beat and then brings that main theme in under it, where I was like, oh, that was really awesome. And then when you get to the end and they're escaping out through the window and heading to the roof, the theme comes back in, but again, slightly skewed to fit like the scoring that's been going on the whole episode. And just really, really good stuff. So maybe a palate cleanser, but the things that popped in this episode really popped, and some of the things that I enjoyed the most out of this show. So even when we get these little side missions, there's always something to take away because this show is just so freaking good. But like I said, those are all my spoiler thoughts. Now I want to know what you're thinking, man. What'd you think of Chapter 15? Did it get you stoked for next week's finale? Did you want more out of it? Did you wish it was, kind of continuing to ride that high that we were getting the last two episodes rather than coming off and now kind of maybe peaking, maybe a little bit of a drop down as we get ready for next week? How did all that stuff play? What are your thoughts on Bill Burr? Does he take you out of it? Oh, there was another thing that kind of took me out of the episode just briefly. But when they're trying to get out of Dodge, when Richard Brake's character is questioning a helmetless Pedro Pascal, Burr comes up to him and he's like, come on, man, let's go fill out these TPS reports. I don't know if that was an ad-lib or if Favreau actually wrote that into the script, but either way, it was just like this little brilliant nod to, for me, Office Space is, oh, you got TPS reports to fill out, and then you come to find out that TPS reports are real. Like, I was at my job one day a few years ago, and like someone sent like a TPS report. I was like, wait, TPS reports are not just from the Office Space? Like, is a real thing? Oh, it was very funny. It's like, you know what? TPS reports probably would exist in the Empire, and stormtroopers probably would have to fill out TPS reports. I thought that was funny. Okay, that was it. Now I've gotten in all my thoughts. So, like I was saying, does Bill Burr take you out of it at all? Like, I've heard some people say he kind of takes you out of it. Doesn't quite feel as Star Warsy as some of the other characters that we've seen. Or did Bill Burr work for you? Did you like what they did with the character of Mayfeld this time around? And the little arc, we got a little bit of a story arc for Mayfeld between his two episodes, and specifically just in this one, they kind of gave him a nice arc. So you think that stuff played? Did it kill you? that Baby Grogu was nowhere to be seen? Did you love the Mando action? How'd you think Rick Famuyiwa did? Anything you're thinking, good, bad, indifferent about The Mandalorian, Chapter 15, The Believer, down below in the comment section. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out as we approach our finale next week. Just, it's like, I hate that we only got one left, but I don't despise it because I'm looking forward to a Friday where I don't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. But if you want to be here for all that stuff as we approach the finale and you haven't yet, you want to show a little love support to the old C-Man, jump over there, man. Hit that subscribe button. Come join the C-Maniac Nation. Hit that little alert bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema, sit down. I've been the C-Man. This has been Baby Grogu. We are signing off. Peace.
Well, that's all live and breathe. You still here? Check out a video like this one or this one and hit the subscribe button so you can get alerts and check out everything the C-Man's got at the Cinema Sit Down.